let's floor it off the land. Look at this. Look how slow. I can't even beat this Lexus ES. And there's an old lady. Wow. I can't make it up. Probably an 80-year-old lady driving that, and I couldn't beat her off the line. That's nasty. Today I find myself inside of a Mini Cooper Countryman, and this is like a redemption video because I actually filmed with this exact car just over a month ago, and unfortunately that footage was corrupted, but I'm back better than ever, ready to make a video with the Countryman finally. And I just want to start this video off by saying I will be comparing this a little bit to both to my Clubman video, to my base Mini Cooper S video, as well as to my X1 video, which is actually the most similar car to this, based on the exact same platform. So I will link all three of those videos down in the description box below, and I'll also put cards up to them periodically throughout the video. But yeah, I will be referring to them, and I will be comparing this a bit to the X1 again in particular, but just to what else is available within either the Mini range or just in general, kind of in this price range for a small German, British crossover. So remember to like this video if you enjoy the content, and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. And without further ado, let's get out onto the road. All right, so setting off here in the base Countryman, first things first, the most glaring characteristic and factor of this base Countryman is the engine. So I want to knock that off straight off the bat. It's a lethargic power plant at best. It's a 1.5 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine producing a whopping 134 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. So nothing to write home about. And it is the weakest link, I think, of this particular car. I mean, overall, decent chassis, built on a solid platform, obviously front-wheel drive biased. In this case, just front-wheel drive. Even when you get the all-4 up to the JCW that only comes in all-4, it's still front-wheel drive biased, but not a bad car, except not a lot of power. 0 to 60 happens in 9 seconds, which again, you know, I'm not saying people are looking to buy this for the sake of driving a sporty car, but I also understand that we're in a world now where a lot of basic SUVs do 0 to 60 faster than 9 seconds. I think a Jeep Wrangler does 0 to 60 a couple seconds faster than 9 seconds, or at least around 7 or 8 seconds. So this is a little on the slower side in that regard, and I think if you want to cut 2 seconds off that 0 to 60 time, you definitely should spend the extra money and go for the S model. In fact, I typically tend to believe that throughout the entire Mini range, those S models are kind of that sweet spot between options, performance, and price. But nonetheless, this happens to be an Oxford edition. So some of you might know what that means, and I'm going to explain what it means. But basically, before I explain, I will say that it is a tremendous value proposition to get an Oxford edition. And because this particular car is an Oxford edition, I'll make the claim to say, hey, you know what? If you want to grab an Oxford edition, then maybe you should go ahead and get a Countryman over, say, a Countryman S or another model in the range. So what does the Oxford edition get you? Well, the Oxford edition actually used to be a package only available to either, I think, current college students or recent college grads. And I think as of maybe a year or so ago, they've switched that to allow anyone able to buy one. I know there are some caveats with the Oxford program, or the Oxford edition program, where you aren't able to either get any other additional discount on the car or any sort of other incentive applied. They used to not let you lease them. I think you can lease them now, but again, I think the price is what it is. But what does that mean? So a base Countryman starts at just over $29,000, and the Oxford edition gives you a credit of $5,600, reducing the price of this particular car after options and destination to just over $27,000. So that's right, $2,000 less than the normal starting price of a base Countryman. That's fantastic. And along with that reduced price, you actually get LED headlights up front with the DRLs that go all the way around, auto high beam. It's delightful, great nighttime light performance. You get the LED tail lights that give you the Union Jack insignia in them, just like most of the Mini range. In fact, the entire Mini range now at least has optional. And then you get the larger screen here on the inside. You get the pano sunroof. You get the black headliner. I mean, blacked out wheels, 18 inches. The rubber, this is a base Countryman, it's 225, all season rubber, another weak point, but this is a slow crossover, so I'll give it a pass here. But the point is, you get a pretty solid package for the price, for the money, for sure, in my opinion. Now the thing is, that base engine, it's paired to an 8-speed ASIN, I believe is how you pronounce it, automatic, which is an okay transmission. It's not nearly as good as either any sort of ZF 8-speed or the dual clutch 7 speeds in some of the other mini lineup or models in the lineup. And I found that this level of power is really not enough to push a sub 3,000 pound car around very fast or very quickly. And here at around 3,500 pounds, it does have a hard time. And there are many points in which I'm merging into a faster speed major road or onto the highway where I'm like, oof, this is really not enough power, and I feel concerned that the car behind me is gonna, not gonna hit me, but just is catching up to me, annoyed with me, and that I don't feel that in most cars I drive these days. Obviously, I certainly don't feel it in a fast or quick car, but even in your typical, say, Q5, you don't feel that anymore. So the fact that you do in this, a little disappointing. But this is kind of where I want to start comparing this car to the X1, because there are some pros and cons between the two. Again, they're built on the same platform, but they have very different characters and a slightly different experience thus because of those characters. So I drove an X1, which I'll link up above or put a card to, and I found it to be a decent experience, but there were a couple big drawbacks. The first one is price. Where this is $27,000 just about, that was nearly $40,000. I think it was 39 and change, just under $40,000. So that's a sizable difference in price. Now for that difference, you do happen to get a good bit more power, actually almost 100 more horsepower and also a little bit more torque. So it's not for nothing. Yeah, and that particular car actually happened to be an X-Drive, I believe. So it had that front wheel drive bias, all wheel drive system that you can get in the all-4 version of the Countryman or Countryman S, and you get standard in the JCW, but it was an option on that car. So another advantage, adds more weight, but still. I just found that on one hand, the interior felt like the most disappointing BMW interior I'd ever been in, where this feels like a really nice mini interior. My expectations are a bit less and the price is a bit less. On top of that, this interior has a bit more character. You have that light that goes around the central screen. Everything is circular. Your gauges are a little funky, which I want to get into in a second, but you have the funky gauges. You have this gray colored trim midway across your kind of center stack area. So you get some charm in here. On the exterior, you get the Mini Cooper look and provenance that maybe you're into. I'm guessing if you're buying one of these you're into, or considering one of these you're into. It's polarizing, but for those who like it, they do like it a lot, and in fact love it. And those who don't, well, it's another story for another day. But the thing that I found that I really didn't like about the X1 was that almost any time someone pulled up alongside you in another BMW, they were in a nicer BMW than you. Because there's something to say about the badge appeal of a BMW over a Mini. Obviously, BMW owns Mini, but having a BMW badge on your steering wheel, having one up front on your hood, some people like that. They want to say, hey, I have a BMW. But when you have an X1 and then someone has an X3 or an X5 or an X7, I'm not saying you should care, but sometimes you think, oh, well, that must be even nicer. Where in a Countryman, I'm not saying this is better than any other Mini, but it's more equal to the rest of the range. Even a Hardtop S doesn't really seem like this superior car to this, although, of course, a more sporty, fun experience. And I did drive one of those too, which I'll link up above. I love that. That's like my bread and butter Mini Cooper experience, is ideally a manual S hardtop, actual hardtop coupe, whatever you want to call it, no convertible, but two-door. But I still take the even the 7-speed dual clutch. I'll take that over this. So that kind of explains where my headspace is at. It's not that I'm against the X1, it's just that I feel like for $12,000 less, I'm okay with this being a little slower, having a bit more charm and character, and still offering you most of the amenities. You still have the LED headlights and taillights. You still have a decent screen here. The one thing I did notice is really, 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 really sucky in here is the audio system. It's really bad, very poor, and it's not nearly as good as a base BMW system. So I think that car I drove, it's been a while, so I don't remember if it had the Harman Kardon or if it had the base system, but even the base system in that X1 is better than the base system here, where the Harman Kardon audio is deeply, deeply missed. And the Clubman I drove, which I can also link up to at some point, that did have the, look, let's floor it off the land. Look at this. Look how slow. I can't even beat this Lexus ES. And there's an old lady, wow. I can't make it up. Probably an 80-year-old lady driving that, and I couldn't beat her off the line. That's nasty. In a 2014 Lexus ES 350. But yeah, the point is very slow. But the Clubman had the Harman Kardon audio system, and I really, really miss that. Also, that Clubman S had a JB4 piggyback tune, which gives you very minimal power gains, but about 30-40 horsepower, and puts you right around where the JCW models used to be, in the 220, 230 range. So that feels a lot faster than this when they're about the same weight. Maybe that weighs 50 pounds more than this, 100 pounds more than this because of the bigger engine, but boy, with nearly 230 horsepower at the crank versus 135, it's a difference, and it's a difference you really feel. Someone who wants a brand new Mini Cooper with some nice amenities, this large screen on the inside, the sunroof, the LED headlights, you're getting a lot of value out of the Oxford pack. But I do want to mention one thing, which is that the Mini Cooper Countryman was facelifted both in 2021, which is actually this car's model year, as well as in 2022, the models that are now hitting dealers, although scarce and hard to find in the current car market with the chip shortage. But I wanted to explain what the facelift in general brought and what the slight second facelift within one model year has brought. So this 2021 car on the exterior is identical to a 2022 car. You get the exact same refreshed front fascia with the new headlights, you get the new taillights, a couple other little tweaks, but really that front fascia has been a little bit revised to keep up with the rest of the Mini Cooper lineup. On the inside, you get the new screen here that's a little bit more flush, and that's and you get the new shifter here for the automatic transmission, and that is all again in line with 2021 and 2022, mechanically identical. The only difference, and I have driven the 2022 Hardtop S, so you can check that to see the footage, and maybe I'll inlay it here, is that a 2022 model would have a different steering wheel and different gauge cluster, which would be that semi-digital cluster in the 2022, and the steering wheel without this weird engrave, and it's a bit thicker, chunkier, and it has well, the button layout is the same, but the buttons are flat. Actually, as much as I like that new steering wheel, I don't like this engrave, and I like the chunkier component. The buttons are a little bit more inset here, and I don't find myself pressing them by accident, where on that steering wheel in the Hardtop S, especially with some spirited driving, I was constantly pressing them, and it was driving me crazy. Now, before we wrap the video up, we gotta jump into a quick tall boy test and then discuss some of the practicality of this car, and we'll be done. So here's the tall boy test. So, to wrap the video up, some of the strengths of the Countryman in general, and this would be true regardless of engine, although the Clubman only comes in the S and the JCW, but still, nonetheless, some of the advantages are you do have a much larger greenhouse here. While I like that low, wide, kind of long look of the Clubman more than this, certainly, and I even like the driving experience, that slightly different dynamic it kind of provides, you get better visibility out of this. No question about it. That rear window is much larger. Your side windows are a bit larger. Again, you just have more of a greenhouse, some more space. You feel a little bit more spacious or whatever, comfortable. You sit higher up, so you feel like you're in a crossover or even an SUV, actually more so than even the X1, but certainly a lot more so than either a Hardtop or a Clubman even, because the Clubman is about the same height as a Hardtop. So you get that extra size and feel, but that also translates to a bit more legroom and headroom in the back. So someone, I would say someone my size at about 6'2", would feel much more comfortable sitting in the back of this than in the Clubman, and there's not even a question about how uncomfortable the back of either a 2-door or 4-door Hardtop is in comparison. Other than that, I mean, this is a car that I like. I know some people disagree and think it's a goofy car, and I would take a Clubman over this, and then I would take a Hardtop over that, and so on and so forth. But if I had to pick between an X1 or a Mini Cooper Countryman, I would probably go with the Countryman for the character and charm it provides. And if you want to kind of hit that middle price point between an X1 and a base Countryman, it's a Countryman S. It gives you almost the power output, or basically effectively the performance of an X1, still going to cost less money, and it's going to have a bit more charm and quirkiness, which you might as well have. You're driving a small crossover. You're not driving some sort of big Luxo SUV, and you're not driving some sort of sporty rally type vehicle like a GLA 45, for instance. So you might as well buy in, have some fun. This is a cool car for what it is, just very slow. But I've enjoyed driving it, and if you guys enjoyed the video, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. New videos are dropping every single week on Fridays. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys want to see. I'll do my best to make it happen. And as always, this is Rio. Peace out.